brought here. As I said, Liquid, you're now proving a point, a lesson. One's learnt when you were last beat on this map a couple of months ago. Same rosters, same showdown, and to be fair, it was a close game, 8-7. Went pretty much all the distance. So if they can try and put a little bit of distance in here, maybe they can try and put the pressure onto Cyclops, or Cyclops, who are coming off the back of a win. They're heated up, ready to rock and roll, and they're going to see if they can try and play a little bit of sweet rock music.
You just changed so many accents in between.
I'm practicing my American. That's a really bad American. I don't know what
I'm not even going to try, because I'm not going to be able to get as close.
Well, you barely speak English.
That's exactly what I was saying. It's like I barely speak English, let alone with accents. So I'll just keep it with what I'm currently going.
It's great.
With. Actually, makeup artist did say that I had a very great. She thought it was American. But
really?
All I said was yeah. That's it. So I didn't say anything, and then she found out that I was.
You were rumbled. Okay. CAG versus Liquid here in the band, slow and steady, but sort of familiar here, nothing too outrageous. The Nomad is a bit of a restriction. It's often played, so taking that out of the sort of position here, it kind of gives you a bit of an opening, gives you a bit of a route that you can run a bit hog wild with here, and you have some chance of growth. They have themselves a bit of a stretch, and as we find ourselves on the other side of the bands, we are just going to have a very quick tech pause, I believe, just sorting out an issue before we get into the opening round, which is going to be on Fireplace, the second floor.
Yeah, it seems to be indeed the case. However, we're still in the pick phase. It could still be changed. I doubt it will be, because no one, of course, would be finding out. And Fireplace Mining, I mean, it's not the top floor, it's not the bottom floor, it is also not the reading room you often see. For some teams, this is the quaternary site. I'm so glad I get to use that word every now and then, because I found out back then. But you know exactly how Cyclops started off just last map? They started off on Bar Stage, which was also a map they only went back to once more after they weren't able to find a win elsewhere.
Now, although statistically, as I said before, Cyclops, sure, they beat Liquid on this map and they've taken some other teams to task on it. It's not one of their best maps of their map pool, which is awkwardly the whole 9 maps, theoretically, because they play all of them, they don't really care. It's one where they haven't really been able to fork out a win as much as they have on other maps, on other play spaces and other sites. So it's still an opportunity here for Liquid. They've learnt lessons, and they're going to see if they can try and prove that. That's that important point I keep harping on and going back towards. They're starting here on the mid floor. Liquid have themselves a bit of control. The Lion, which is always that consistent, terrifying pulse. When a Nomad is gone, there has to be something to control Cyclops.
Yeah, and we saw some discussions around how Gridlock would be one of the best operators in the game if she was a 2-speed. Of course, not the case now. So you want to find something else. And, you know, that line is going to be either helping you on a push or if you try and hunt down one of these roamers. And I think that operator actually suits in quite well against Cyclops, because they are a team that is constantly running. They're constantly everywhere. They're constantly on the move. They don't sit still. And that's exactly where the E1D comes in clutch.
Well, a bit of a loose control here over the top. They're trying to keep them guessing, and that was a mistake. I'm not sure if they truly expected them to be that close to the angle, but the pre-fire bullets came through, a bit of a rain of fire, and absolutely caught the head of them. PSK was sort of handed a bit of a freebie there. The mouse was sprinting around in the maze, and there was somebody with a gun hovering over the top of it. And it's in seeing if we can stop any of the onslaught of drones and data. Liquid, they know not to overextend. They know they've got that early bite, and they know Cyclops love to bite back. So they're making sure that everything is meted and a bit controlled here.
Accidentally walked into the pre-fire there, I think. Might have been zoned out. Maybe in a talk, I'm not quite sure. Possibly would have thought he might have been able to take the gunfight there, but not in the end, of course. And whereas Cyclops instantly went upstairs with 4 of their players, I believe there's only 2 left currently, with the rest hovering around that first floor. And the ground floor here is Resets is looking to find an entry here with the LMG.
Holding the angle and steadily making their way down. As if you heard that, I'm not sure. Some energy from the A stream. The players of that are behind us, just to make sure there's a lot of distance between us and the people we are talking about. And those are The overwhelming urge, that little moment, the hide and go seek of the players cornered and stuck on either side. They're a bit locked in behind the hefty machinery. They fire back, but Liquid know they don't need to overextend. There's still work to be done on the second story, and Nesk does some down towards Anaton. Takes the catch, the E1D stops any instant response again. The use of that utility to control what Cyclops love to do is so well put together here by Liquid.
Yeah, for sure, and Galarada, he's trying to actively challenge the red stairs there, but he knows there's more to worry about. Spots 2 players now, continues to pre-fire with the 9x19, but he's unable to connect anything as of yet. The drone now posing some trouble as well as he deals a small bit of damage, but the E1D coming up, he finds the kill. I believe, no, it was actually Blackray that finds on. It looked like it was Galarada, but that means that the red stairs are still standing.
It did. It looked like there was a connection. They're doing everything to try and hold off, but you can see the verticality is gone. It's out of their hands. Blackray, in the meantime, finds Nesk on the bottom of the white stairs. The pings are starting to come through. The intel's working into the favor of Cyclops. There's still a bit of a backline and a huge take by Ask there over to the corner. They're starting to dig in on the far side. A pre-fire and a swing. Suzu C bites back. They're trying to go for the plant, but it's a resets with a gun that just keeps going.
A double entry eventually for the side of Liquid. They tried to continue going if it wasn't for the alibi. Going for a bit of a run out here and there, trying to find these kills. We're back to a 3-on-3. Cyclops, their aggression again coming out, but unfortunately a little too late. Unable to have the impact they wanted to early on in that round, and that leaves Team Liquid now in a round advantage. Bar will be coming up next. It seems like the Oryx will be brought. And, you know, before you would say, there is always that 6-pick, there is always the repick. Now, repick is only for the attackers, and 6-pick is completely gone. That means the Oryx has been locked in. And there's multiple ways to use him here. For example, the long bar that we have can often be destroyed by just a single use of the Ramadash. It allows for extra visibility to whoever's in the freezer to take the gunfight towards the new drop balcony, for example. However, that one is being locked off. This is a rotation. That is a double rotation. All right, so from the freezer... Yeah. I don't see it. Oh, there we go. From the freezer into piano, from piano back into the bar, and a castle barricade to lock it all off. However, my worry here is if they're playing aggressively on those windows, Liquid that is, they might be able to shut out this complete hold in a matter of seconds.
Well, there's obviously lessons learned. It's a team that's gone up against each other before. They had the best masterclass of how a team likes to play in by being beat by them on it. Blackray suffers on the early spray here down, but he's going to see if he can lean back into the VIP dining window just underneath. There's a bit of a stretch, but look at this. Liquid aren't going to play your game, Cyclops. They know how you like to play them. And you're going to go for the hop out here, and he can't quite get the true shot through. They've already found themselves rounded onto the corner, tucked in on the side, and there's the E1D, but Blackray knows at this point he's got to get out of there. His goose is not cooked, but definitely at least a little bit plucked.
They knew where he was. He was being hunted down by the E1D. He ran out before, so he had no real other option there. And there's an attempt of a sledgehammer to go off, and eventually it does. Alligator just waiting underneath that hatch, hoping that Palu is overstaying his welcome a little bit, over-peaking there, so he can pick up that hatch shot that is so needed. And as the drone comes through, actually didn't drone him out for quite a while. Alligator is going to be having to drop off here.
He's holding on to just the hatch here. He's giving himself a bit of a stretch. They're making sure Liquid has to work for those early kills, not just sprinting into an open fire, but at least openly fired there onto it. Again, the combination, the Gon 6 and the cover there that came through really well put together. We can hear a little bit more breaching and breaking on the far side. They know roughly where the players are, and they're rooting them out one at a time. Liquid is making sure that they have the intel before they go for the act, and well, there's a little bit more that comes through the hold, the pause, the moment, and the drone that gets caught out, the Claymore as well. Galarada can use this later. It's a tool and a surprise that, again, Liquid aren't going to play into. They keep moving. They keep pushing and pressuring forward. They take that sort of secondary intel that we've lost something here, so let's assume that we have a moment to try and do something else here.
Grenades are being cooked in the meantime as well, but Palu unable to quite find the response yet. The door underneath him gets opened up and kind of spooks him out a little bit. So he decides to head back towards that roof to allow himself some extra safety, try and strike from a different position because there's 50 seconds left. The side is up on that top floor to have a man advantage. You do not want to throw away that advantage now, as it is for Susan C and Blackray both to strike and bring it back in Cyclops' hand.
Swung round and pre-fired, 2 different angles, 2 different fights, and now 30 seconds. They're going to see if they can try and get a second on that connection. Over the top of the balconies, resets, connects with 1. And we have another moment, another break, and another loose player down in train. They still have some vertical control here and play, and you're looking at the danger of just an impact in the hands, but if they can find an angle, they can make it work. So Reset hops up on the bar and drives himself all the way through to Lumber. Doesn't see the connection as true as we did, but here we have the outlines, and he has himself just going for a swing and a fight. There it is. He can keep going and keep firing. They're just going to pull themselves out of that. PSK is going to see if he can stick it on the far side. They don't know about the secret player holding on. There's a fight onto the window. Can't get a second, and the diffuser is safe and secured and down on the ground. PSK gets that connection with the cool karma. Resets offering all the cover that gun can on the far side. The drone gives the first game away. The LMG almost gives the second here. And Gatarada, I said he'd prepared himself some tools to use later, but resets his other ideas.
For a second I was afraid there. None of them had jumped out yet. None of them were able to go for the rappel and try and cover some part of that run through there. But at the moment I realized he was on those white stairs, instantly we have one jumping out. And then we rewind a little bit because they went for that plan. They dug in deep. If only the angles watched a second earlier. That could have been a pickup. That could have been a diffuser called. Or at least the information, because the impact was tossed in from underneath as well, but not at the position where the planter was going on, but at the position where the Zofia was covering with the LMGE. And we have a tactical timeout straight away to come through from the side of Cyclops here, as it's 0-2 for Team Liquid. They feel like there's something not quite connecting, and they want to root that out very soon.
I mean, it was a great drive by obviously the Zofia. They made sure they needed to be where they had to be. PSK, again, if we're going to talk of experience, being able to trust the players around them and get themselves stuck in, the swing and the pickup on the player on window, if they hadn't have been able to respond to that so fast with the cover of resets, then it's a different story. Then it's a different round, then it's a Cyclops round. And Cyclops are just as aware of this as anybody else is.
Yeah, for sure. And with 0-2 currently on that scoreboard, Cyclops, you know, they started off as strong as Liquid did in that previous game they just played against XSET. So it's definitely a bit of a hurt for them, right? When you're starting off the game and it's not going quite well like the previous one, and you don't really have time to reconvene because that tactical timeout they just used, yeah, that's all they're gonna get. Like, their resources are done now. There is no more prepping, no more changing. All they can do is between the 5 players on the Cyclops side themselves. They are the ones making the calls now. They are the ones that need to find whatever works against this Brazilian top team.
Well, Cyclops, will the conversation be one that brings you a little bit more hope into a game that's kind of slipped away from you the first 2 rounds? It's not entirely been as handed as how you opened your first game just before against XSET, but as we said, it's a very different showdown here against Liquid, and that's one of those stories. Is if we're gonna say that game against XSET was a challenge for XSET because they're 2 very similar teams, this is going to be one here where Cyclops are being tested by a team that is, by and large, very different to them. There is this drive, there is this play around objective, there's this confident solidity and consistency that Liquid plays around.
And it's in hiding underneath the skylight there, hoping to not be spotted out by any of these drones. And of course, it's not really a position that you would often check. Not sure if he just took out a drone there. I believe he did as he moved under the new balcony out there. And there is some pressure up on the top floor. We have Black Ray sitting around a pixel here, just hoping that someone walks right into his 1.5 with the MX4 Storm, so he can pick up one of those early kills. That's what Cyclops needs to bank off, because the first 2 opening kills went Liquid's way, and we knew how important they were against XSET.
Black Ray is trying to just sneak his way past that opener and see if he can find himself in a new place. And, well, now he's sprinting because he realized the opener was steadily getting a little bit wider, a little bit more dangerous for him to spend too much time in the sprays. And a bit of pressure starts to come through either side. They're looking for the angles onto the windows themselves to see if they can try and get the catch. The second E1D goes off and nobody struck from it. It covers a bit of movement. Make sure they don't bite back. They've still got a hop over here, but Cyclops have been much better this time at baiting out that intel without suffering the cost of it.
Someone right underneath that window. They might be aware that Black Ray's out there. PSK goes for the repel. That might be crucially dangerous here as a grenade pops in. Won't quite get him, but they do definitely know he's here. Full-fleshed, but so is PSK. And he's just stuck on here, but Resets comes around the corner. Will be able to lock it in the end. There's quite some utility and manpower used, but as Ask finds another kill, suddenly it is a 3v5.
I mean, they really just decided to go ham. They had an idea where a player was, and I think Liquid were a bit sick of putting pressure down and not getting anything for it. Nask suffers in the other side of the hot pocket. The Vulcan pops off that was on Lumber, burns him and forces him to hold stairs, but he wanted to do that anyway. The kit needs to find its way over. As it does, you can see Ask is setting himself up for the drop here, but Iagate is watching. The Christmas door was open, and opened even further. PSK with the swing round gets one more connection. The drones are whirring and working ahead of the players themselves, and Cyclops once again are finding themselves on the wrong side of well-used utility. A single player is all that's left for this round, but they don't get much further. Liquid respond to a timeout with a flawless.
Some good clears coming out here. Liquid really showing their professionalism right here. I mean, they know Cyclops. They've played against them so many times, and the fact is, the lineup hasn't changed ever since 2019 December, so they're still the same players, and they still play the same way. They try to deny the entry, they try and go aggressive, but there's a way to play against that, and that's exactly what Cyclops is currently doing, or Liquid is currently doing against Cyclops here. 0-3 current score, and it's showing for it in that matter. And it shows like, okay, they open up the window, they're trying to bait him out, grenades come in, flashbangs come in the meantime 2 Liquid players are pushing him from the pixel side of things, but there's nothing Cyclops can do to respond.
Nope. And that's it. Is the intel game from Liquid has been so good. They're not just using the drones as well, they're sort of building themselves a structure of, well, you tell me what's going on. We can pass this information down the wire and make sure that it gets to the ears and the guns that need it. As we saw in that play, the pressure, the timing, the hold on the window, it wasn't just the single player out on the window with the 2 that were coming from the opposite side on the second storage, but the pressure on them, because there was also a catch in case he jumped out. There was another player waiting on the bottom of garage, holding the window jump out as well. Liquid had fully cast a net around every possible exit and entirely Doctor Stranged that single play, but that is what they're doing so well here. They haven't just read the book on how to play against this Cyclops defense. By the looks of it, they wrote the thing.
Now there's quite some repicks that happen, and they led to a Capital, a Ying, and a Buck to be brought out already with the Finka and the line out here. And to me that just spells aggression, right? They try and find themselves an opening, they try and find themselves a gap in the defense of Cyclops, and in that moment every single piece of utility they own is going to be tossed at the faces of the Cyclops team. But for now, it seems like they want to take that top floor control. And that's basically how every cafe starts out. You go from top, you go to bottom, you make sure that everybody's back on the site for the defenders and see if you can catch anybody out on the process. So, an Agator sticking behind his pillar, he might find himself isolated very soon.
Anaton's doing a little bit of loose play around the side of Zulu. There's drones that are coming through again. The intel game's been very well read and almost read. That player there on the backside, the swing and the pre-fire down towards the bottom of Brown. Suzy suffers as well. Palu's taken a lot of blood out of 2 different players and only suffered a scrape on his own side that's very quickly patched. The Doctor is in. Nask gives him a little bit more back as Cyclops pulls themselves generally back. There's still Galarada playing a bit loose here on the second story. The drone goes by and the Vigil goes bye-bye. He had the idea of heading up there, but instead it's just going to sit here and hope they don't try and redrone the bottom of red. Instead swing round, doesn't get the catch, pulls off at the worst possible time. The Buck opens up the end of the route in the run. He thought his number was called there, and it almost was, but still scrapes a survival by. Everything is seemingly watched by Liquid right now. Where do you go?
I'm not quite sure if they actually knew he was out there, but, you know, he could have had the opportunity to take down Palu. Unfortunately, rotated around at the wrong timing here. Now, Anaton trying to play some vertical game. Also, just the wrong timing coming through. Someone just peeked over there. So let's hope that that pre-play C4 we saw earlier is going to be able to find him some success. But the flashbangs are coming out. Smokes are being tossed in to try and counter that as well. But I don't think Liquid is too bothered about it.
The burn of the flash around the corner, they're hoping nobody's behind the shield. It's an absolute cacophony, an orchestra of pain, but it's actually the Ying that suffers as the first entrant. Drop down on the side, they don't have the swing over VIP, it's a shotgun locked in. Anderton gets a kill, there's a drone watching and a player to his left and to his right. So he's just sort of swinging and popping up every which way, tries to get the take with the SMG, but it's the door that locks him in instead. A sudden moment, but 15 seconds, you can't take too long. It's back and forth inside Kocha. Galarada is making sure they don't have that clean entrance. They do still have a bit of space. They got to get the kit into the site itself. They're able to get an important take now. Top behind the chassis, it's just Blackray. He's close on the corner, creeps, finds the diffuser, Cole tucks in, and Cyclops finally find a first round.
It was a scrappy round at that door, but it managed to take away a lot of time out of the Liquid hands there by taking these fights constantly, but in a preservative manner there. They did not want to fully commit to that fight. They peek, they go back. They just play peekaboo with them there. They just show themselves, they fire some bullets, but they back out instantly again as well. And of course you take some damage here and there. But eventually you waste a lot of time by playing it like this, and with the trades happening left, right, and center as well. And Blackray eventually shutting down the diffuser planter. They find themselves around.
Okay, Cyclops, it's a time round, which to be fair, it's still a round win. It's a technical victory, your favorite kind of victory, a technical one, but it doesn't really dictate that it's a good one. Liquid still had a lot of control. They suffered, sure, and they lost the round, but time is something that on the other side isn't going to work in your favor, and time is something here where that game is only going to last so long unless you find big ways to step in on it, because Liquid has been very good, as we said, at sort of pinching the number, knowing where to be and when to be there, and even in amongst the chaos, that final 20 seconds where every player was still standing, they were still going for those sort of strikes onto singular players. They still looked to try and find the fight there onto the VIP side. They still looked to then try and find the lock-in on Coat and try and get the kid into the chassis. Although it's chaos, although it's panic, it's still Liquid. And Liquid know how to work themselves in that do-or-die moment.
Now you know how we noticed how the Nomad was banned and how a Gridlock would have been a very good replacement.
Yeah, you did.
If she was only a little bit faster.
Yeah, you said that.
PSK doesn't really seem to be worrying too much about it. We'll be bringing the Gridlock here, and I think it's a valid choice against Cyclops. Seeing how much they were running around in that previous round, they just managed to slip away time and time again. Now, you can try and locate them, lock them off with a track stinger, and then try and shut them down if they try and rotate out.
How preservative they are of their drones is so well played here from Liquid. They just know how valuable their utility is. It is one of the most important parts of anyone's arsenal and anyone's roster, and they treat it as such with the respect the drone deserves.
Yeah, XSET had a bit more trouble with that here and there, and now there is currently still 9 left in the hands of Liquid, of which 6 are currently in the field. So a lot of information to be gathered by the Brazilian team here. And they're doing just that, trying to find out how active currently that top 4 is for the side of Cyclops. Are they holding any angles? Are they trying to play aggressive left or right? Doesn't seem to be the case as of yet, as they're trying to force them out.
They're looking, they're eyeing up and trying to find a little bit of just something from the opposite side of it. Some damage, some destruction, some pop off there of gadgetry, but nothing that's made a connection with any of the players as of yet. It still pings. It's still this sort of arm's length utility game where nobody wants to be the first victim. As we said, if we're going to talk about how Cyclops were learning to keep themselves a bit cautious, Liquid, they're finding less and less there's the connection on the other side of their utility game, which was a big part of their early drives, factors, and force here. They're getting themselves prepped. Some angles down towards that tucked-in corner so nobody can be tucked in, which, to be fair, they often like to be. Galarada suffers. The spray from above, there's really nowhere he can go, and at this point, you're just sort of waiting for either that or a grenade. It was only really one way out of that door. Palu is the man that signs the ticket.
Decided to go for a bit of a teabag there while scanning, seeing if there was anyone else up there. Wasn't quite able to find him. 30 seconds left on the clock, round 5. And this one is nearing its conclusion here. Liquid are trying to find themselves a way in here. They've locked out some of the rotates, but with 18 seconds left and a Yokai still on the board, Ask tries to go for the plan, but will it be successful?
Well, Yes.
All
Is
right.
the answer. At the end of that, there is a body that goes into the side. Blackray fought his way up the top of the stairs, but he suffers on the opposite side. They had too much of a lockdown. There's PSG proving that over the top rope. He finds one more. Susie C fighting upside down. Repel nowhere safe. So he's just going to see if he can take the fight. Finds the cap and gets the lock in. Blackray's down. It is a technical 2 versus 2, but they have a buck right above. And there it is! Sprayed across the top, the two players. There's one, we saw the other. The lock-in, it was rotten timing for Cyclops, but that was that control from Liquid.
I was going to say that one is getting very close. He's being caught off there as he has the skeleton key out. He's opening up the wall. He's opening up the floor, unable to directly take a fight, but he swaps at the right moment here as Liquid struck well in some of these positions with Cyclops. They managed to fight back, and you saw there again, just barely winning that gunfight.
That's why people bring Buck.
That's why you bring Buck. It's a shotgun and an instant swap back to the C8.
Okay, Cyclops, 4-1 is the distance you're currently looking at, and that was one that you were never even close to on your previous game here. Liquid, as I said, they can operate in that narrow window, but just look at the structure that came through for that execute. They had the control in all the places they need to. They knew where that kick could go down. With the angle over pillars that was being held by PSG and the lockdown there with the gridlocks, with the drones that were giving Palu the heads up to the play, he had the cross angle to make sure nobody could then put the pressure onto PSG. They had the drones watching those angles, sure. They lost because of Blackray coming up to find the fight at the top of red, but that player positioning was one to make sure the kit was fine to go down. All of it was threaded. There wasn't a route through for Cyclops to find themselves clean, so they got scrappy, and scrappy they did. But when you find yourself on the wrong side of a scrappy fight and suddenly they still have that structure, well, what do?
That's it. Everything was set up for it. They realized there was an opportunity to go for a plant in that exact same spot that would unlikely to be contested by any players, more likely to be contested by yokai drones. Of course, we don't know, but it seems like they're eyeing up for a rush here, Emmy.
Oh, they are prepped, ready to rock and roll, and here we go. Knots on the first door, found themselves through into the second, and oh, nobody's home. Don't mind me, gonna take up myself a residency and plant on the close-in corner. They're stuck on the far side, whereas Cyclops, I don't know, but their phones are gonna be ringing in just a moment here as Ask connects it with the ground and gets themselves a plant. They pull themselves back in, tucked in the corner. They're ready to strike and find their own kills on the far side. 35 seconds, Addison at least gets one on the split of it, but in the meantime, it's the Ying off the board and a post plant. You're gonna try and bite your way through. Pre-fires and angles are only going to buy you so much time here. Locked in on the far side of Zulu. It's one more for the side of Ask here. Nesk has a lockdown. He is connecting everything. The kit to the floor and the bodies. There's a couple more here. The spray through the rotation. Liquid. My word.
Okay, I'm going to say it again. You know, last round they saw an opportunity to go for a plant, Emmy, and they went for it, and it worked out well. And you know what they did? They saw an opportunity here. They went for it, and it worked out well. They managed to just rush up to the site and get the plans there in the end. A tactical timeout to be called, and it is Liquid that calls it. They're 5-1 in front.
Take a moment.
Take a moment. Just quickly breathe. You do not want to bring yourself into too much trouble here. So at the site swap here, Cyclops is now on the attack. And you know, the coach quickly having a bit of a talk. All right, this is what they do. This is what we need to pay attention to. This is where I want you guys to play to shut them down early on. Those are just 3 examples. I have no clue if that's exactly what he's saying right now, but I'm just trying to paint a picture there of kind of last minute pointers he can give his team.
I said at the beginning, I said it's going to be a map for me to sort of get a proven lesson from Liquid here, because obviously this was the map that they lost against Cyclops at SI 2022. This would be that truest litmus test of just where change could have happened. And yeah, you always play how you play on the day. Oh, they're playing some pretty good Siege on this day here in Charlotte. They're doing pretty good things.
They're doing pretty good indeed, and there's definitely no questioning that. As we're soon to be getting back into the game here, it seems like it will be the top floor, so we're headed towards the bar. Repick that we see from Aniton from the Monty to the floor, so even if the Monty is able to be played, it's not always the case.
I think one of the things to sort of look at with this game as well, from the side of Liquid, okay, apart from that one player.
Oh, that is unfortunate.
We'll be back in a moment. It's happened. He
No,
slowed it
you're
down
right.
just
It's
enough.
like those 10, 20 seconds from some of these scrappy gunfights
Yeah.
that happen, those are eventually what make the difference in such a position and situation. But the truth being is that Team Liquid is currently 2 rounds away from picking up 3 points as well. And it's currently 2 rounds away from making sure that, again, another team not being able to reach 2 wins here at the very first day of the major. And of course, this is only game 4 on both these streams. That is currently going on.
It's been a very chaotic day.
It's been a very chaotic day. We've had some overtimes here and there.
Yeah.
We've had some small.
We haven't had. I mean, obviously, I don't know the result of. I think it was an OXG game that was on A stream just before when.
Yes.
That
I've no clue
seemed
either.
to be quick. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, I can check actually. I'm not going to check the score, but it was OXG versus Team 1, and that game, whoever it went to, was over quite quickly by the sounds of it.
I heard oxygen behind me scream quite loudly, so
Everybody does.
I know, but you know, it was like a
So do we.
it was like a victory scream of some sort.
There's the start. The Flores is trying to make their way up there, get some control over any of the barbs or anything that might be on the white stairs. Nesk prepped under the white window, hoping to get the catch or the rappel and the cable, but you can't shoot that out. That would be a terrifying operator here.
That would be very fun.
Imagine.
But yeah, it might be for the better because people will just be falling to their demise every single time someone gets too close. And a map like Cafe especially, let alone Tower or Skyscraper.
Someone
now,
with big scissors.
It's new operator ID being teased right here as we speak. And the major will it be the new one? We don't know, but Nesk is going for a jump out, finds one, but Galarada is there for the trade.
Instantly bit back there. It's not the most uncommon jump out, but Nesk was able to at least pull something out. It's Ayagator. He hasn't had the strongest showing so far. I believe he was the player from Cyclops that didn't have a kill before the rehost, and that will continue as we keep pushing ourselves a little bit further away here. Nesk, in the meantime, he's been very even. That's the thing about the team. As I said, they've made sure that they were all in a good bit of body balance, but his was truest to the form. I think he'd got himself dead pretty much 5 of the 6 rounds up to this point, and he makes sure that he tacks on another, but he makes sure he keeps it at the 1 ratio here. Ask is under a little bit of pressure from either side. There is some C4 and some stretch. They're going to see if they can catch the cigar door, but Cyclops isn't pushing themselves either side too intently. They've made sure they've made their mark. Got the rotation open around Cocktail and prepping instead for a bit of an angle here in the second swing round. Doesn't quite get the full catch though.
Grenades are being tossed in, or flashbangs rather, all the way towards the pixel. There's a player behind that shield, but followed up by a grenade of Black Ray will be able to find shortly an advantage for Cyclops, but quickly gets traded back out.
Well, it's back and forth all the way across the bar. Suddenly, Liquid's been able to put it into their favor, but now it's a 1 versus 1. It's going to be Anaton, that player who has been able to do the distance here, trying to get a bit of a catch. He has a lot of time. Palu waited for the moment and the call of the plant to come around the corner. They're going to stick it and get themselves down. The impact doesn't get the connection. The player doesn't find it either. Anaton somehow takes that into his hands, and that is energy Cyclops desperately needed.
A 1v2 clutch for him to come down there, and a bit of a misplay possibly. Waited a bit too long, throw the impact, well, at the right place, but unable to connect the shots eventually in the end. And Cyclops is going to be able to find their second round here of this matchup. Their first on their attack, of course, right at the round of the swap of the half. But they played it quite well. They knew someone was a pixel. They threw in these flashbangs. They get the grenade, and suddenly a lot opened up. Of course, Liquid trade back a little bit, but it's not at the end. And, you know, at the end, Cyclops, a 1v2 clutch to lock it off is not something you often can rely on.
I mean, when he was fleeing through the impact hole, you were like, that's him caught. Surely that's him caught. To lean back into the fight there, as you said, those moments happen sometimes. Palu couldn't quite get that full connection, and
I mean, Palu sees him run, he doesn't see him anymore, so he's like, all right, he's going freezer, so he wants to swing around, but at that moment, Anaton's like, I can repeat that. I can take that fight. He didn't kill the first time. Why would he kill him the second time around? And is going to be able to eventually get the kill and the round under the Cyclops belt. But they need many more. Again, 2 rounds is all that Team Liquid needs for these for the 3 points here. Cyclops, they still need 5.
Ash, not an operator you see too much nowadays, obviously, in the current meta. She doesn't quite have the options that were once offered to her, and that there's just too much else to do, and you've got too many other good guns and gunners to be able to bring here. And whether it's just a thing here for Galarada to try and find some comfort to lean into the firefight, if it's something that works, it might bring them a little bit more of a success story. With no meta off the board, it is going to sort of have a bit of a cost here in terms of the hold. Cyclops isn't quite going to be able to get that full confidence that they like, but they're instead going to sort of try and shepherd the players with the Jackal working their way across. You haven't seen him too much today, but he does still have a show of force on maps like Cafe.
It's very brave dropping through that hatch with the ITA-12S. Now, get some red pings, however, reinforcements on the other side, but it allows Gator to sneak up towards the actual site. He's just going to walk in. There's no one here. He finds one. There he goes. Oh, he doesn't land the kill, but I believe there's another player ready to follow up. Blackray actually gets a trade in the side and the control of Cyclops now.
The site is locked. Obviously, they have the hatch to drop down. CCC is trying to move into the backside, but the kit isn't there. So at this point, Blackray's just sort of sitting and waiting. There's nobody there, and he's cautious. He's trying to get rid of the Maestro cam. Couldn't go get the connection. It's bringing the read of absolutely everything. At this point, Liquid is sort of restructuring. Galarada's going to see if he can catch a free one here and hope they go for the rotate, but they do not. Nesk connects over the top of the hefty train machinery and gets rid of a little bit more of a loose connection. Again, the lack of the kit means it's a bit of a bite back in. Anaton makes sure the kit is cold, unfortunately, on the far side, and now it's down to Blackray and SuzuC. The 3 versus 2 here. The player inside train. SuzuC is trying to see if he can try and retake some of this verticality. Doesn't quite get the mark here. Liquid, they don't overstretch. They don't need to. They have all the lockdown. They have that player isolated inside the site itself. They know where SuzuC is based on the 2 fights. He takes the Blackray, has to just leave. And now he's definitely got it because, well, there's no way for him to go. That is that double-edged sword. If you go for the deep dive into the site and you find yourself there empty, well, if you've not got anything in your hands, that's all you can take from it.
I was going to say, they find themselves on the site so early, they have full control, they just didn't know if someone was around prep because, I mean, there might have been some verticalities that would have been hindering them there, but instead they took it to the long hallway. They allowed Nesk from the top floor to take out the cover, rotate back to side, shut them down in the hallway. Nesk saved that round for Team Liquid there due to the fact that Cyclops was unable to commit down towards the actual side of prep. And, you know, you find that early control. Unfortunately, they weren't quite able to capitalize off it fully.
You just sort of think, I guess, what the conversation is there from Cyclops, because they were then trying to move the kit in with a little bit of body support and cover. They lost the firefight down the sort of long red corridor, as he said. With Nesk on the back line, he was able to do some work here, and again, that consistency of him. Okay, I said before, he was sort of even on the body count. Now he's a little bit further since the Rios, making sure that he keeps that. But it was one of the discussions that we had with Pengu before all of this, is one of the hardest things in Siege statistically is to have a 1 kill per round ratio. A 1 KPR is a pretty huge metric to have that consistency, and he is pretty much locked into every single round. He's found some work, he's found some business and some bodies to remove, which against a team like Cyclops, who thrives in that gameplay, it's so important.
They love chaos, Cyclops. They love to bring it, they love to play in it. It's often where they find some success as well. However, Team Liquid currently not having any of it. I mean, yes, Chaos still strikes here and there, but they find a way to balance it back out, to sort of bring back the pace towards themselves, and that is why they're currently leading here with 4 match points to go for them. Grenades are being attempted here. Gator, he might find someone, I believe that was actually an ADS that might have picked up one of them. Some stuff is being tossed in. That grenade will pop, but still no damage.
No, nothing. Nobody was home. They kept themselves a little bit wide. They're concerned about the pace that could be applied here, but there's nothing too immediate. No more charges. I think it was sort of a roll of the dice from Cyclops on the previous round, and it came up with a great result, but unfortunately Liquid were playing an entirely different game. Here, they're still setting themselves up for the structure around Piano, around that lockdown on Cigar. There is a loose player towards the bottom of White that they've got some caution on, but they're just heading up and down the stairs, so it's nothing you can sort of sit there and wait on, especially without the Nomad. They're rolling the grenades down towards that shower box, and nobody's home there either. Anaton suffers a little on the smoke. They buy themselves a second's of time here, but it's still this steady attempt that otherwise, again, Liquid, they're not playing into.
I mean, Nesk is such a smart player as well, right? The first flashbang rolls and he knows exactly what is about to be following up, and it will end with a grenade and it will end with an explosion. We'll now retake that ground, retake that bathroom with the mirror window he has, so he's going to be able to challenge Cyclops no matter where they go. And with a 2-6 and 1 minute 20 left on the clock, Cyclops, they want to go for a plant, but they still need to descend one of these floors. and they haven't been able to take the full top floor control as of yet.
I mean, that shield's still sitting there at the top of Lumber as well. The mirror windows all the way from deep, stretching themselves down that long fire line. Cyclops, they're sort of trying 3 different approaches here. None of them have come together.
The chase.
Husk is chasing with the
Oh,
shotgun
the
trade out on the bottom. But in the meantime, on the top, there's another kill that goes into their favor. PSK suffered at the same time. It looked like it vaguely might have happened itself around Train, but I could be incorrect about that based on piecing together 2 different fights at the same time. But 30 seconds, they got to try and piece together at least 3 more. Liquid is still locked in power positions, and Cyclops are still trying to run the numbers and the math. Is it going to be a calculated risk here? There's a hold, there's a hole, there's an idea, there's a bit of caution because they're not entirely sure where it is, but it's such a bold attempt. 20 seconds now, and it's all they've got left as Nesk is starting to get a little bit like he wants to hunt. If he can find a kill on the second story now, as they're trying to go for an execute, this could be over. Takes the hot hop, goes down the white corridor. They're slipping ahead. It's double kills inside the side. Either side, it's 2 versus 1. It's just Irrigator left, but he doesn't get in the door. Liquid find their opening win, and they did it with the style of a team that is, for a lot of people, tournament favorites.
Yeah, they are for sure some of the tournament favorites, but when are they not? Team Liquid is always in that top 5, maybe even top 4 in terms of the tier list at the end of it. But if you saw them play against Cyclops here, they were in control. They were able to slow down the aggression and the chaos that Cyclops wanted to throw at them. And they were able to make sure that they were victorious. They find those 3 points. And the dogs are coming out here. The congratulations to the rest of the team, but their day is not done yet.
No.
They still have another game at the end of the day where they will be trying to look for the 6 points.
I think that's it as well. Is obviously the 6 points is something that has escaped a lot of teams. A lot of teams that have been able to take the first win haven't been able to take the second. You kind of like that on an opening day. I think that's the fairest thing to say.
It keeps it interesting.
It keeps it interesting. It keeps you sort of guessing, and it keeps the groups close. And that's that important, terrifying sort of statistic that grows and grows as the game goes in. And well, as we said, their next is actually the last game of the day. On the A stream is when you'll be able to catch Liquid again versus their country folk, FURIA, I believe.
Yeah, FURIA, of course, playing from Mexico City. So it's going to be interesting to see. We don't have them shouting against each other. Well, we will have them shouting, just one in Mexico and one in South Charlotte. Maybe they shout loud enough they can hear each other. But I doubt even the Brazilians can shout as loud.
Guess we'll have to find out. But before then, a very quick break, and we'll break down that game that we just saw.